think if you want to refer to the NATO airstrikes or the NATO intervention in Kosovo in 1999, as you know, 10 countries of the NATO launched airstrikes from 15,000 feet, right? And it caused, it killed 2,000 people, right? And it lasted for 78 days, and it destroyed the infrastructures in former Yugoslavia. So what are the lessons learned from this case study, and what about the proportionality assessment regarding the using of explosive weapons in populated area? Because as you know, Mary Robinson, the ex-High Commissioner for Human Rights, wanted to sue some of the generals in the NATO countries. So what are the lessons learned regarding the weapons used in this case study? Thank you.
Well, immediate action, you know, you say about 15,000 feet bombing. One of the immediate action, NATO during the strike decided to lower the altitude of the launching bombs. After especially the Grindinka bridge, there was and others, you know. But it was a decision. It's exactly, you know, when we say plan, do, check, act. We have an information. There was collateral damage. Maybe the method was not the good one, and so it was immediately corrected. As you know, on some affairs in ex-Yugoslavia, during this conflict, they have been brought to the tribunal at Den Haag. And so there are quite a lot of lessons learned on these affairs. There was the television and radio installation in Belgrade that has been struck. So if you see, in Belgrade and areas, there have been around 500 deaths, civilian deaths. It is too much. And even if this war was get some precise munitions, it was you must take out of your mind that there is 0 deaths in a war. That's really crazy. When we say surgical, 0 deaths, no boots on the ground. After, well, it's something different, but there are always some collateral damage. We must do our best to prevent collateral damage. And on this situation in ex-Yugoslavia, there's been a lot of lessons learned. And we see the result with the strikes on Libya. But this was special because, you know, so no boots on the ground, and you know that the situation worsened after.
I will not comment on this specific operation, but just to mention that for us, it will be very interesting to know more about the military practices around the world of lessons learned, and as mentioned also by Eric, the battle damage assessment procedures, etc., that take place after strikes or after an operation. Because what we would like to see and understand more, because we don't have a lot of information so far, and is how this after battle damage assessments and lessons learned are then feeding renewed targeting processes for the future strikes or future operations. And this is not extremely clear for us for the moment. Of course, some armies probably do that, but we don't have a lot of information. It's important also that these battle damage assessments and lessons learned not only analyze the efficiency of the strike of the operation in a military terms. That means, have we succeeded in destroying the target we wanted to succeed, but also take into account the damage and the civilian casualties caused by the strikes of the operation, and then also to feed that into the what could be a virtuous cycle of targeting for the future of strikes and operations.
I just want to comment about the idea of lesson learned. So we agree that we are talking about rules and laws, and a rule of law must be at least binding and imposed. And I think that it's not about lesson learned, because it's clear that in Libya and in other countries, it is not really very effective. So for me, what is the issue here? The issue is certainly about the accountability, about having a strong international legal system that can really impose sanctions in case of violation. And for me, till now, it is not the case.
It's clear that accountability is a huge challenge in relation to the respect of international humanitarian law. That's known to all, and that's real. Here with this issue, ICRC also concentrates on, if you wish, accountability at the end of the cycle, and here we are also trying to concentrate on the beginning of the cycle, meaning how the strikes are conducted and how to prepare and better and inciting armies and armed groups to have better practices and processes in conducting their hostilities.
Not so much a question, but a comment just to add. You discussed the planning of targeting process, what may also be referred to as deliberate targeting, where you have, thankfully, maybe ideal conditions where you have the time to analyze a lot of things. But just for those who may be less familiar with the targeting process, there's also, of course, the time-sensitive targeting, or what might be troops in contact or self-defense situations where the need, the necessity to commence with the strike is there, either because you're defending your troops, coalition troops, or if you have the authority to defend civilians on the ground, you still need to make a assessment to make a strike. But all those things you discuss happen in a very, very condensed amount of time. So just understand there is different process. There's a deliberate long-term planning process, and then there is very fast, this is happening now, civilians or coalition troops or someone is dying at the moment, and all those laws and processes still has to occur, just very condensed. So
thank you for a precision about targeting, because, you know, it seems when I'm talking about targeting really a perfect process. It is not. And you have some situation exactly when you have some dynamic targeting, when you have some close air support. I'm sure you have heard this name already. So you have your forces that are engaged in combat and they ask for protection. And so when you need a close air support, maybe the definition of the targets, the collateral damage estimation is not as good. But the more intelligence you have, for instance, to have the no strike list, if you take artillery or the fly in the cockpit, the pilot knows in a theater what is in the no strike list. That is one thing that is important. And then, for sure, you have to react. And one thing at war is you have some immediate reactions. And immediate reactions, sometimes you have no plan. So that is very important, is especially with I was talking about training. Because you need to have education, training, and so that things, reaction becomes quite natural. And then, and it comes to another subject that you were raising, you need to have the example of the commanding staff, the officers and so on, and accountability. Accountability is very important because for our people to know that they have to do this, it is a rule. The example is given by colleagues, others, comrades, and if we don't respect the rule, you are accountable.
Thank you for your question, because it's excellent concern that we also have the difference between pre-planned attacks and attacks that take place somehow in the I don't like this expression, but in the fog of war, when you are under attack yourself or when you have a target of opportunity. And that's raised even more challenges, that's clear. Of course, in IHL itself, if I can address this issue from a legal viewpoint, IHL itself strikes a balance between the military necessity and the humanitarian considerations. So for instance, the precautions that the parties have to take when they are conducting hostilities, they are subject to the criteria of feasibility. That's embedded into the rules. So the feasibility will differ if you have time to prepare pre-planned attacks, and the feasibility will be very different if you are just reacting to a target of opportunity, for instance. But there are also some rules that are not subject to this kind of relativeness. And for instance, the prohibition of indiscriminate attacks is absolutely, it's absolute. So there is no feasibility there. So it's important also to take that in mind, that the complexity of a situation in the ground does not absolve, of course, the responsibility of the military to fully respect the law. Where it is relative, but where it is not, it is not.